They say power reveals who you are. That night, it revealed who Mithra had been running from. He chose confrontation because it was the only exit he knew. When cornered, you bare your teeth. You provoke. You force the room to break before you do. So Mithra did exactly that. He challenged Tempest openly, questioned their right to interfere, and deliberately pushed Testarossa hard enough that any lesser diplomat would have snapped. It was a calculated gamble. If the demon lost her temper, negotiations would collapse and chaos would become his shield. She didn't even blink. No anger, no threat. Just calm so absolute it bent the air. And in that stillness, Mithra felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Not metaphorically, literally. Because the moment after, Velgrynd stepped forward. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. If you think you can avoid any consequences, I'll need to teach you how wishful that thinking is. That was the moment Mithra understood the truth. This was never a debate. It was never about winning. Fate had already entered the room, and it wore the face of a dragon who had watched empires rise and rot like seasons. Then Masayuki appeared, and everything broke. The man Mithra had prepared to face, a tyrant, a monster cloaked in legend, was nowhere to be found. Instead stood a young man who looked like he had wandered into the wrong meeting. Nervous, awkward, honest to a fault. When he spoke, there was no authority in his voice, only confession. I was just a normal student until a little bit ago. Just like that, every report Mithra's spies had compiled shattered. No grand ambition, no hunger for control, just a boy crushed beneath a title he never asked for. The contrast was jarring, almost cruel. Cornered, exposed, Mithra did the one thing he hadn't done in years. He spoke honestly. You are utterly unfit to rule. He expected execution. He deserved it. What he received was gratitude. Masayuki lit up, not with pride, but relief. Real, unfiltered relief. For the first time, someone had looked past the supernatural charisma of the Chosen One and seen the terrified human beneath it. He laughed, then confessed what no one else ever dared to acknowledge. His power wasn't a blessing. It was a curse. Admiration that suffocated. Loyalty that imprisoned. Legends that crushed him under expectations he could never meet. Mithra recognized the pain instantly. It's really hard, he said quietly, not being able to say what's truly on your mind. In that moment, politics dissolved. Titles evaporated. Two unwilling symbols, one forged by bloodline, the other by destiny, found refuge in mutual understanding. Laughter replaced tension. Friendship took root where coercion had failed. Velgrynd watched in silence, ancient eyes narrowed. In all her years, she had never seen anything like this. Power had failed. Fear had failed. But honesty, raw, unguarded honesty, had stabilized an empire in minutes. What began as a clash of authority ended in something far more dangerous than rebellion. Genuine human connection. With friendship forged, hostility evaporated. Mithra offered cooperation on his own terms. He would remain in the shadows, anchoring the old money nobles, guiding dissent away from rebellion while preserving the quiet life he valued. Power without office, influence without exposure, an elegant solution. I will continue to manage the nobility dissatisfied with the current situation. The empire gained stability. Mithra kept his freedom. Then Testarossa spoke again, this time privately, and this time mercilessly. She exposed what Mithra himself had never realized. Wicked Scoundrel. A fear-inducing unique skill inherited unconsciously through his bloodline. The monster others saw wasn't rumor, it was aura. He had been terrifying people simply by existing. Then came the second revelation, the one that broke him. His wife feared him too. Velgrynd didn't soften the blow. She never did. Have you ever said you love her? The question hit harder than any threat of execution. Duty fulfilled. Words unspoken. Love assumed. Never voiced. Mithra realized his greatest failure was not political. It was personal. So he ran. Not from danger, toward it. He arrived home just in time. And for the first time, he spoke. No masks, no silence, just honesty. The crisis dissolved, and with it, the future he had nearly lost. Gratitude took root toward Velgrynd, toward Testarossa, toward the fragile mercy he had been granted. From that day forward, Mithra became a pillar behind Masayuki's reign. All three noble factions unified. The empire achieved in months what should have taken years. Power had shaped Mithra into something feared. Understanding allowed him to become something better. That night ended not in blood, but in drinks. Mithra sat with minutes, comrades instead of rivals, the nobility pacified, the empire momentarily at ease. For the first time in a long while, Mithra breathed. A little empty, actually, he admitted. I feel like I have no goals left to reach for. Minutes answered by sliding an envelope across the table. Heavy, old, dangerous. A contingency once meant as leverage now returned in trust. If you're not interested in your own past, he said, standing, go ahead and just burn it. Then he left. Mithra opened it. The report dragged forgotten shadows into the light. Earl Bullduff, a name tied to abandoned revenge, resurfaced, quietly weaving a noble sect through debt, coercion, corruption. Worse still, names within the faction connected directly to his former wife's lineage. The realization cut deep. Mamia. The name escaped him like a wound reopening. Peace could not survive unanswered questions. Power might feel empty, but responsibility did not. Mithra summoned guards and intelligence at once. The calm painter vanished. The storm returned. By dawn, the truth was no longer rumor. It was record. Earl Bullduff's immunity collapsed. Titles meant nothing once the machinery of the empire turned. Warrants signed, testimonies secured, law moved with ruthless precision. There is no talking your way out of this. When Caligulio stepped forward, recognition flickered in Bullduff's eyes, followed by fatal arrogance. He mistook restraint for weakness, pride for protection. His denials died the moment Caligulio spoke of the past, of laughter, of cruelty, of lives ruined casually. The arrest was swift. Mercy withheld not through violence, but certainty. The Supreme Court was no court at all. It was a grinder. Confession meant nothing there. Suffering was the verdict. Have fun writhing in pain, Caligulio said coldly, and feeling the hate of all your victims. Justice in the Empire was not gentle, but this time it was precise. With vengeance complete, Caligulio turned towards something harder than war, his past. He rode alone to a quiet town, a smaller mansion, once his entire world. It felt diminished now, but the weight was heavier than ever. This sure brings me back. Every step was calculated. Mamia's husband was absent, time bought with strategy, not force. When Mamia appeared, she looked thinner, worn, guarded. Are you finally going to execute me? Her despair revealed everything Caligulio had failed to see 20 years ago. She believed herself guilty, unworthy, crushed by a lie he had accepted without question. His anger collapsed inward. You did nothing wrong, he said. I was a fool. Titles meant nothing here. Power meant nothing. Only trust. He asked for another chance, not as a general, not as a noble, but as a man. Am I really allowed to believe in you again? I'll never abandon you again. In that embrace, the cycle of hatred finally broke. Truth followed reconciliation. Servants confessed, coercion, debt, fear, survival, not betrayal. Caligulio listened without anger. It's all in the past, he said. It's the future that matters. Then he spoke the unthinkable. The divorce itself had been the mistake. We need to take it back. No conditions, no recriminations, just choice. That's what I want. When Mamia finally whispered yes, the house breathed again. Justice moved quietly in the background. Names erased, protections stripped. Caligulio left the details to others. His goal was complete. The emptiness inside him was gone. He returned not as a conqueror, but as Baron of Heath. Later, drinks again. Laughter softer now. Caligulio saw the truth behind Minitz's report. Testarossa, he muttered. She's one fearsome woman. Tempest was no ally of convenience. It was reality, eternal, unmovable. War against it wasn't just foolish, it was impossible. What remained was restraint, education, continuity, peace worth inheriting. With Mamia beside him, the future felt fragile in a way strength could never protect. They clinked glasses. We've got a tough journey ahead of us, and for the first time, no one ran from that truth.